Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Welcome back, everybody, to another great episode of Inspired Action. I'm Kyle Pertuis, your host, and I am here with three more amazing guests today to answer this question. How do you reframe setbacks in a way that promotes learning rather than blame? But first, a quick intro. Today we have Petra Russell. Petra Russell is an executive coach, co-founder of Prickly Pear Consulting, and a specialist in neurodivergent and gifted leadership. Based between beautiful Laguna Beach and Frankfurt, Germany, she supports high potential talent in tech, automotive, and aerospace to lead authentically and navigate complexity while building inclusive cultures where innovation thrives. Next but not least, Alejandra Milky, founder of Alejandra Milky PhD Coaching and Consulting. Alejandra is originally from Monterrey, Mexico, and is a leadership development expert based in Austin, Texas. Since the year 2000, she's helped organizations, especially in construction, equip technical managers with people skills to lead more effectively. Her work bridges the gap between expertise and leadership through coaching, training, and adult learning strategies. And finally, Randy Coates, Dr. Randy Coates of Coates Leadership Group. Randy is an executive coach, strategist, and former military leader with 35 plus years of global experience. Thanks for your service. An expert in leadership, workplace culture, innovation, strategy, and transformation. Randy empowers leaders and teams to achieve growth, clarity, and lasting success. And I cannot wait to hear how you guys answer this question. So let's get started. Petra, we're going to start with you in that question again. How do you reframe setbacks in a way that promotes learning rather than blame?
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you for the lovely intro. As you stated, I work with neurodivergent and highly gifted professionals, and one of their biggest challenges is, in fact, when they face hypersensitivity to even perceived criticism. And those setbacks can feel, deeply personal and often not like a learning opportunity, but more like, proof that they don't belong. And just to give a quick context, there's actually a word that is used to describe this, which is RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria. And it's a condition that's often associated with ADHD, but not exclusive to it. And it can really trigger some, even mild feedback that's, imagined disapproval can trigger intense feelings of, shame and embarrassment or worthlessness. And it's often disproportionate to the event, or, causes a tendency then to withdraw. So none of those, obviously spell out learning. And one of the most powerful reframes that I've seen in my work is literally shifting from what's wrong to what's not yet great. And even though this is really a small language shift, it's forward looking as opposed to, getting lost in the past. And it opens up space to, explore, space for curiosity, growth, rather than blame. And as leaders, I think we oftentimes, when we have these situations where, a target was missed or communication was misfired, we can always reframe in the sense of where do we have room to grow. And in that way, it keeps people engaged and motivated and, rather moving away from what could be defensiveness or shame.
Yeah, I like you said from what's wrong to what's not yet great. Is that how you said it?
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that, because so often if we're looking at a scale of 0 to 10 and we're feeling like we're in that zero land, it's not always about how do you get to 10, right? We need to see the growth and the progression to move through that. It's kind of like blame says you're the problem and learning says let's solve it, but it's not going to be solved at the snap of a finger. I love it. Alejandra,
Yeah.
let's move over to
Oh,
you.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, what would you add? How do you reframe setbacks in a way that promotes learning rather than blame?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Thank you for the question. And the question is I've thought a lot about this. Obviously, I think I come from a culture, the Mexican culture, where we as kids, our parents were very strict with us, right? So it was very, very clear that mistakes were not allowed, or they were really a very bad thing to happen to us. So I come from that background of being very strict, or as the way that I was raised. And I shared this with a lot of people. A lot of my clients share the same kind of background, right? And that it makes it very difficult to deal with these setbacks. However, I love the word setbacks. If you think about that word, if you think about other words like mistake or failure or error, right? I think the word setback even doesn't have the same negative connotation. I think it implies movement, implies journey, implies taking steps, moving forward. So a setback is just a little step back, right? And I think we are, as humans, we are designed to have those setbacks, right? Nothing in our lives, nothing just is one direction only, right? So there's always different ways that life, that's where we are, has allowed us to learn, right? And this is sometimes made in these little steps back, these little things. Oh, let me just stop for a little bit. So I talk to my clients a lot about reframing that as inevitable. They're part of our growing, they're part of our learning, and they're actually data points, right? It's like should be grateful that they are happening sometimes, because they allow you to stop, to reflect, to develop a sense of ownership for your own growth, right? And that they are going to give you very specific information, if you allow it to happen, to reflect and see what could have been done differently. What are we learning here? Where is the opportunity here? And that it is the key for continuous growth, right? A lot of the people that I work with are these very good construction project managers, there's very good engineers who were trained not to avoid mistakes at all costs, right? Have a very hard time with this. But I think if we reframe it as the key point where we're going to gather information that is going to help us continue, I think that the thinking can be reframed in a way that it is meant to happen. We were designed in this way, so our learning can be more powerful, so we can be more conscious of what we're doing, and that it's the way life is. I think that's the way that I try to work it with my clients.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the focus on setbacks, right? We often say setbacks set the stage for feedback, which allows for comebacks, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Randy, let's jump over to you. How do you reframe setbacks in a way that promotes learning rather than blame?
Great. Thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate the question. I don't appreciate having to follow Petra and Alejandra, but I will give it a shot. When I talk with my clients, reframing to me it's about investing some time to gain clarity on what specifically they felt made this a setback. And of course, the severity of the setback is in the client's eyes. It may be something as simple or as big as, I really deserve this promotion. I've been working for years. I didn't get it. It could be simple things. The example that I thought of in thinking through this question was, I had a client who was an executive who wanted to coach about the fact that she was in a staff meeting and the boss asked everyone's opinion but hers. And that was a significant event for her. But we spent some time digging into, okay, what was the real issue here? And what she finally uncovered as she was talking through what was really bothering her, what she saw as the setback, it wasn't that he didn't ask the question. It was that she felt her voice wasn't heard or valued. That was the real setback for her. And the critical challenge for me as a coach was to help make this part of the conversation relatively short, but a productive exploration, not a venting and festering in the helpless list mindset, which she did magnificently, by the way, coming out and uncovering this was the issue. What do I do about it? The outcome of that is to recognize what's the real source of trouble for the client. Then you have to reframe with that new knowledge in hand. You shift the client from thinking about a past troubling event that they did not control to a future event that they can control. And those were questions, well, based on what you experienced here, can you imagine the next time you might be in a similar situation? And of course they can. And as you explore, tell me what that's going to look like. Then it's an empowering thing where you've now reframed it and you help them build that, co-create that clear understanding of how did I feel last time? How am I going to behave in the future when this happens again? I heard a great presentation a couple of months ago from Dr. Hae-Sun Moon out of the University of Toronto. And the way she would explain that is shifting is very similar to what Petra said, shifting from the troubled past to the preferred future. So that reframing from the troubled past quadrant of her model to the preferred future is really how I would look at reframing these things as a learning experience.
I think it's safe to say we expect setbacks, right? It means we're moving. And so the key is to turn what the heck just happened into what's the upgrade we didn't know we needed until now. We actually did an episode similar to this topic, but I want to hear it specific to the talk around setbacks. How do you balance accountability with compassion when you're having to address setbacks? If you're coaching leaders, maybe you've had that experience in your leadership, career, but how do we balance accountability with compassion when we're having to address setbacks? We'll just go in reverse order. Randy, if you want to kick that one off.
I'll give you a shot. I think that's a great question. And because, kind of to the point I made earlier about a helplessness mindset. And we all do that, right? Well, at least I do. I've done it. If something didn't go my way, my first reaction is to blame other people. But I think the value of having someone who can be a thinking partner as a coach or a good peer who can ask the questions that we think about, well, how did you prepare for this? Okay, who got picked for it as a promotion is a good example. So who did get picked for the promotion? What's different between your preparation and their preparation? And keeping those questions unemotional and objective, but very factual. What I find in working with my clients is it really does take them to a place of personal accountability and looking at the pieces of the puzzle that they own and what they can do about it.
Yeah, no question. When I think about this, it's kind of like teaching your kids how to walk, right? Rarely would we say, well, they fall down. You clearly lack discipline and strategic execution. No, we're going to say, hey, good try, get back up, right? No, we got to keep doing this thing. I love it. All right, Alejandra, what would you add to Randy's comments?
And I think that a lot of, again, I have to go back to what I do, right? Because I talk to a lot of these engineers who are, I think they use the word accountability so many times. And actually today I've heard that word, I don't know how many times. They feel so responsible for everything to work out, right? They have in this mind of problem fixing, and they feel that they have to hold people accountable, and I have to hold them accountable, and it's my job and my responsibility. And they struggle so much with that because they know that they have to do it in a way that is efficient. Even that word is very engineer, right? They have a word that it kind of meets an objective, right? And I always think about that. We are all humans, and generally speaking, we're all these humans trying to achieve a goal. So let's try another way to think about the humanity, think about what makes us humans. How are we together in this? How can be another way that you can approach this in a way that is not this direct? This is 1, 2, and 3, and you only met 1. And what about 2 and 3? And one of those are going to be met, right? So, and it takes some time. But I think when I emphasize the humanity in all of us, that we're all trying, and that there are certain human skills and characteristics that we can get us closer together. I think little by little, I think that we can really realize that we are very likely all together trying to make it work, right? But I think if they can stay away from that, I have to keep people accountable, is my responsibility. Instead, think about how can I bring more humanity into what we're doing? How will we connect at a more deeper level? How can we share values, share experiences? I think there's a lot more that can be done instead of just being the accountable sergeant, right? That
Yeah.
Going to be.
Yeah. And I hear, and I think it's kind of balancing, not confusing a mistake with something that's a measure of worth, right? I mean, especially as coaches, our job is to coach the behavior, not crush the person. And I think you can say that for any type of leadership, right? Even in parenting, as I joked a minute ago, but those are the things that we have to remember. If we want to see progress, we can't continue to bash the mistakes and the things that are not working the way we might think they should. Petra, what would you add to this conversation as it relates to accountability and compassion?
I think what comes to mind, and plus one on both Randy and Alejandra, I'm coming in a little bit from a different lens. So accountability in my world is usually almost like, we're looking at maybe perceived setback or failure, and perceived or real, the brain obviously processes the same way, but it's coming from a place where there's almost impossible or extremely high standards that people are, trying to meet or short, just slightly short of maybe meeting. And so you want to put things back into perspective. That's what I often end up doing, and remove a little bit, the person from what actually took place. So it's a little bit of that, maybe what conditions contributed, for this to unfold the way it did, rather than, again, this kind of failure culture, right? And I'm also very sensitive to it because of my German background, and we're notorious for digging into failure in great detail and finding out who's responsible, and become a real embarrassment and a real uncomfortable scenario. So I always encourage, to, again, even when we did trainings for team leaders in very high performance teams, to really remove a little bit the personal aspect and go back into what were the contributing circumstances here, and help people to, again, get a little more level, playing field, because of, again, where we're operating, which is usually almost impossible, right? Extremely high standards.
High standards, yeah.
Yeah. So true. I think it's part radical ownership. And then the other part is about what Alejandra was mentioning, is really that human first leadership. And sometimes I think accountability is misplaced when people sugarcoat things, because it's either, let's skirt around this a little bit. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Or we've got the other extreme where there's just soul crushing attempts to make it right. And I think what we want to do is really be the kind of leader that can call somebody up and not just out, right? Well, that's all the time we have for now. I appreciate you guys offering your incredible experience and insight and sharing that with us on Inspired Action. Be sure to join us on LinkedIn at noon every Thursday, and on the MindFit Coaching YouTube channel almost anytime you'd like to watch. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.